Study notes for article readings. The structure of study notes are adapted from Cornell Notes by Drs. Darling and Dukes. Thank you for taking the time to view this informational video about study notes based on article readings. What are study notes? Well, STUDI is an acronym for Synthesize, to Understand and Digest Information. These are tools intended to increase your engagement and enhance your preparation of course materials, assignments, and other activities. It is our hopes that these notes will increase or enhance your ability to identify clear and unclear points as you do readings, make linkages between and amongst readings based in the course and outside of the course, as well as prepare you to make meaningful contributions to class discussions and or complete course assignments and other assessments. Ultimately, these should be viewed as a resource for enhancing your ability to make progress in this course. This is the template for creating study notes based on article reading. As you can see, there are three main points. First, conceptual linkages. Second, questions or points of confusion. And last, notable points. You're asked to describe in 2 to 3 ways the information from this article links to the foundational information for this course. In this case, it's the models of disability and or conceptualizations of stigma according to Goffman and or Lincoln Phelan. You're asked to make these linkages so that you can see how these foundational concepts appear repeatedly across the different readings in this course. Second, as you're reading articles, you may come across questions or have some questions of your own based on what you're reading. You're asked to make notations throughout reading to identify questions that might be muddy or unclear to you. And then as you read, identify main points and arguments that link or answer those questions for you. You're to use active reading strategies, which I'll discuss in a few minutes, as you're reading the material initially. How are they used? Again, to clarify muddy questions, to enhance your understanding, to incorporate your contributions as well as the contributions of others from the course, as well as to prepare you for contributing to discussions, online discussions as well as in-class discussions. Out of class, you can use these as a review tool for post-class review in preparation for learning probes, exams, or quizzes, and connecting across from course to course. In our degree programs, these courses fit nicely with each other, as well as builds upon information previously learned. Sometimes prerequisite knowledge becomes a little bit fuzzy as you move on to the next course. We're hoping that study notes can be used as a reference point for you to return to the information learned in one course and to make linkages across courses. I mentioned active reading strategies previously. These are obtained from princeton.edu. As you're reading the article, you're encouraged to use these active reading strategies, such as asking yourself pre-reading questions. Just by reading the title and the abstract, you might ask yourself some additional questions about what the reading might be about. It is suggested that you utilize notes in the margins to indicate or to identify what your questions might be. You also want to identify and define any unfamiliar terms that you think will be repeated, terms that you think are critical to your understanding of the article. You should use an asterisk or a bracket to identify the main thesis or the main idea of the reading, the crux of the matter. If you're asked in one sentence to identify in one sentence what the article is about, you should be able to articulate that. We also discourage you from using highlighters when you're reading. Students tend to highlight way too much information and not meaningful information as well. Making notes in the margins can be much more useful to you because then you are forced to identify the main idea or article or information that you're trying to identify or remember. The questions in the margins also inform your understanding as well as your preparation of the study notes. Visual representations of flowcharts, diagrams, or anything that can help you understand the idea. If you go to the website below, you can see some examples of what these visual representations might look like. As you read each paragraph, you want to ask yourself, what does it say, what it does, and what it says in only one sentence. Again, paraphrasing is preferred here because that represents the higher level of conceptual thought, as well as the idea that you are incorporating the information that you're learning into your existing schema. You should be able to write things in your own words, as this represents analysis and synthesis, the highest levels of Bloom's levels of learning. Might you also think about writing your own exam question based on that reading? So again, in this course, we're continually asking you to apply Goffman or Lincoln-Feeling concepts, as well as the models to the article reading. So you might be able to anticipate what an exam or assessment question might look like. Last, being able to explain the article to someone else is the ultimate in demonstrating that you have an understanding or grasp of the information read. These are active reading strategies that you should employ as you read the articles. So as you're reading these, performing these active reading strategies, you want to make sure you identify the appropriate template. There are study notes based on article readings, and there are study notes based on chapter readings. So ensure that you're using the appropriate template based on the course outline and content outline and due dates. You also want to identify more than is required. If the study notes template requests that you identify 5 questions, then I would indicate more than that as I go through, and you can come back and see which ones you've devised the answers to. Same for your notable points, and for your summary, make sure that you're identifying critical information so that you're able to write a coherent and complete summary in your own words. How are study notes graded? Study notes are graded using scoring rubrics. The scoring rubrics aligns with the basic content of the study notes. In this case, the conceptual link, the questions or points of confusion, the notable points. As you can see on the next slide, there are indicators for needs improvement, acceptable or exemplary responses. These rubrics have 2 purposes. First, the instructor will use them to grade your completed study notes, but for your own development, the rubric can be used as a guide in the development of your study notes. It is suggested that you review the scoring rubric prior to and after writing your study notes to ensure that you're meeting the pertinent criteria. That would be the ones under the exemplary category. Let's take a look at the rubric. Here's the rubric that would be used to grade your study notes. Let's start with the acceptable category, as many of these criteria must be met. Well, all of these criteria must be met in order to be considered exemplary. In addition, an additional criteria. For acceptable, under conceptual link, we're asking you to make this linkage in 3 to 5 sentences. Conceptual links are correctly made by using materials from the article to describe an event, produce an original example, or draw comparisons, primarily using your own words. To meet the exemplary category, you can use only your own words, so only paraphrasing to identify the conceptual link. For questions or points of confusion, again under the acceptable category, we're looking at 3 to 5 questions or points included in your notes. You are identifying them as questions. They are coherent and relevant to the article read. To be considered exemplary, your questions or answer are clarified within your own notes in the notable points section. So there should be a clear relationship between your questions and the notable points in the last category. For notable points, you're asked to identify 3 to 5 main arguments. These arguments should be written primarily using paraphrasing, and they certainly should relate to the main points of the article read. In order to be considered exemplary, additionally, 1 or more of your arguments should be accompanied with an original example or a link to conceptual materials from another course or concept within this course. For the needs work category, you can see that you're not doing a very good job of any of this. You're not providing a conceptual link, you're not identifying the minimum number of questions or main arguments, or they're not relevant to the article. You don't want to be in that category. You'd like to be in the exemplary category. There are some questions at the bottom of the rubric that, having answered those yes to all of those, you are increasing your chances of earning full credit for these study notes, which are 5 points. It is advisable that you have a hard copy of the reading material and use the active reading strategies as you read the material. Many of you rely on electronic media to read your course content. For this course, it is suggested that you print out or find a way to make notations. In Adobe PDF, there are sticky notes that can be used on electronic reading, but you also might want to go old school and use pencil and paper to make your notes as you're reading. You want to consult the course outline to identify the correct reading, the correct article, and make sure you're using the correct template for study notes. You want to submit these notes in a manner that's described by the instructor. If it's an online course, then you're probably uploading to an assignment link. If it's a face-to-face class, you are certainly printing and bringing the study notes to class so that they can be utilized in the class for discussion. Again, study notes are to be used to promote your engagement in a class discussion, to complete your assignments or other assessments. They can also be used to make chapter-to-chapter or article-to-article connections, which again demonstrates that you have a firm grasp of the information read. You can also return to study notes in the future to go across course and make course-to-course connections. College reading assignments are not necessarily intended for you to memorize facts or to regurgitate what you have read. The intent is for you to clearly understand what the author's intent was. One of the ways that you demonstrate understanding of the author's opinions is to agree or disagree by providing justification or explanation why you agree or disagree with these opinions. For a course that relies heavily on discussion such as this one, being able to identify the author's main point as well as your main points and whether or not those are aligned, the study notes will help you to do that. It is our hope that once you have completed your study notes, your engagement and participation in the course will increase. They will certainly make you better equipped to make contributions to these discussions and to complete your assignments. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this instructional or informational video about study notes.